All right, welcome. I, I'm very, very happy that we are ushering in a new year, and there's always an important point for the new year to have a New Year's resolution. I think we've all resolved to be wiser, better people, more capable of expressing our true human potential. And what better way to usher in this new year um, than to listen to Dr. Quan Le. Uh, and for those who might be listening, thinking, "Hey, wait a minute! I celebrated New Year's Day already weeks and weeks and weeks ago. What's going on?" Well, this is the year of the dragon. This is Chinese New Year. Quan, what year are we actually entering right now, according to the Chinese calendar?
4,722.
Four. Okay, there we go. All right, that's as Quan was saying before I hit record. Not very many civilizations get to that place of the year 4,000 plus or pushing on 5,000. Um, and I heard it said once that we are all, though we are all mortal, the civilizations that we are participating in are potentially immortal. And so, what better way to both shed a lot of the confusion, the misinformation on what is China? We're all getting bombarded on day and night with all sorts of propaganda to get us to be afraid of a big boogeyman in the form of China, as Putin called it. I think that Quan is going to do very well today to both usher in the question of the battle over creating an educational system capable of producing truly aristocratic citizens. That is aristocratic from the standpoint of a society ruled by the best people. And that doesn't mean it's tied to race or class or caste or bloodlines or anything of the sort, but really a question of uh, true education. So Quan, thank you so much for doing this. Happy New Year. The stage is yours.
Okay, so Happy New Year to everyone. And also, I would like to add a small detail about the Chinese calendar. The Chinese century is not 100 years, but 60 years. So it's because a man, each generation in history is about 30 years. And a man would reach at his 60th year when he would see his grandson beginning to be a man. That's why it's 60 years. And according to the year, this year is 4,722. So according to the Western system, it would be the 48th century. But it's not the 48th century for the Chinese, since a Chinese century is 60 years and not 100 years. So we are in the 79th century for the Chinese. And the 79th century will end in 2043. And in 2044, the 80th century will begin. That being said, I want to do something a little bit different today because you have my article. If you want to read it, you have all the details. So I have no intention to go back to the article. I have some question in preparation for nurturing the discussion, but I would like you to open the game. Do you have any question about the aristocratic man or the aristocratic education?
Well, um, my understanding is it's very well stated in the writings of Plato. Is that true?
Absolutely. I would say that if Plato can be acknowledged for something, it's certainly for creating an aristocratic education. Absolutely.
So, to what extent do the so-called elite of the planet educate their families differently than the mass education? And to what, if they do, then to what extent might they still adhere to the ideals espoused by Plato?
I'm not sure. Well, first we have to distinguish which elite, the Eastern one, the Chinese one, the Russian one, Western one, the American one. Can you be more precise?
Yes, I can. That question came from my myopic orientation as an American.
Okay. So I don't want to be impolite, so I will ask you to answer to the question. What do you think about the American elite?
Say that again?
What did you think about the American elite?
Well, I would rather sharpen my question to the elite or the ruling families of the West for the last, let's say, 2,000 years. How might they adhere to the ideals or the legacy of Plato's elaboration of the aristocratic man?
Do you think that they are aristocratic?
Do I think that? No. And I really like and am inspired by what I've learned from you, Quan, in past meetings like this about the aristocratic man and the aspirations of humanity and the benefits and the goodness of understanding the potential to evolve personally, individually, up to that level of what we are, going to look at as the aristocratic man. And I was just curious if there was some adherence to that versus the quality of education that the masses get in the West.
Perhaps we should start off by just defining what is an aristocratic man.
I would like you, Kelly, to give some answer.
Well, I don't have my words are a little coarse, but aristocratic man, the way I believe that most people see it now is basically anybody who has money.
Okay,
at least that's how I was brought up.
Okay.
But that's not the true meaning, I don't believe.
Absolutely. What is the true meaning according to you?
The true meaning would be wealth would probably be a sideline, if at all. I'm not quite sure, but it also has to do with I would say spirituality, but the less of the material parts of what we know, and more, for a better word, I hate using the word metaphysical, but just learning more about ourselves, defining, building our foundations, like the foundations of more or less what is, how should, when I ask questions, how I should ask questions in there again, a noble way, the right way, learn about love, truth, and beauty, and stuff like that.
Okay, let's use it as a preliminary answer. I want to start my first question. I would like to have a discussion around that first question. In exploring the human mind, what are the two major components in interactions? I pose as a hypothesis, as a start for discussion, that there are two components of the human mind. What are they? Can you use the words you like? We are here for a discussion. There's no good answer.
Can you hear me? Good afternoon.
Yes, please.
Yes, I'd like to go back to your first question about the aristocratic man. As I unfold that in Plato and the Republic specifically, the aristocrat would be more endowed with the spiritual essence in himself, as opposed to timocratic, which would be more honor, valor, war, and so forth, on down the line, and that is simulcast in the allegory of the cave. The image is projected on the cave wall, set to specific consciousnesses or mental states within individuals. It's obvious to me that the more elevated aristocratic thought is genealogically transcended through specific families or what have you. And this question, I have been recently not looking at it from a metaphysical perspective, but more of a intellectual perspective, looking at the work of Ian Gilchrist and the asymmetry of the brain. One aspect about thinking is correspondent to creativity, music, things like that. The other is more adamantly to materialistic mathematics. So that's one way that I look at that. Thank you.
Excellent. Are other people willing to keep on with aristocratic, or we go back to the question I asked, because it would be a good starting point?
I think
Okay.
Kevin has been itching to toss out
Oh,
a thought on the aristocratic.
okay. Vas-y, Kevin.
Well, I think I can answer both questions actually. I think today, um, aristocratic is understood as the mightiest, as the might is right. But if we go to the etymology of the word, we would say the best, uh, which is why it's confused today, I would say, with the mightiest. And it's opposed, or it should be understood as being opposed to capistocracy, so the worst, or the dumbest, or the stupidest. And as far as the second question, I would define, because you ask what were the two dimensions of the mind. Was that your question exactly?
Absolutely. In
Yeah.
exploring the human mind, what are the
Right.
two major components in interaction?
Right. Well, no, I'm going off of what I'm trying to learn from you and what you're teaching, but I would say there's the time dimension and the timeless dimension. The timeless dimension being focused on truth, goodness, and beauty, and the time dimension being focused around phenomenology or sense perception. That would be my answer.
Absolutely. I would like to push further the discussion from what Kevin just said. There's a time dimension and the timelessness reality. The time dimension is created by what? By something. Okay. The time dimension is also called becoming, and the timeless dimension or timelessness is also called being. What is special in the kind of this? We are speaking of the aristocratic education. That's the main subject today. The aristocratic education is an education that is focused on the timeless dimension. Okay. Once again, I think that you all heard me say that maybe 10,000 times. Education comes from educare, meaning to bring forth from within. Okay, so to bring forth from within, from where? From the timeless reality. Okay, there's a part of the mind that is given by the society, that is the time dimension or the becoming, and it is a part of your mind that is a gift of the whole reality. Okay, for those who believe in God, they would say that's the gift from God. So the gift from God is the timeless dimension, and the time dimension is what is given by the society. That is the basic foundation of the reality of the two dimensions of the mind. Now, I ask the question, what word illustrates the best the educational endeavor? I'm looking for one word, but try many words as you wish. What word illustrates the best the educational endeavor? Educational, okay? Education. And just a little bit, just a hint, I said the word.
Well, with your definition of educare, to bring forth, I remember it. I would experiment with the word elicit.
Yeah, I accept it. It's a synonymous of to bring forth what is from within. Absolutely. So the idea that I want to stress that the education is to bring something that is already there, but has to be unveiled, has to be discovered. Okay, that is the aristocratic education. And what is different with the time dimension, as Kevin said, the time dimension is the bio machine. Okay, because when we talk about the time dimension of becoming, you have birth, growth, and death. So birth, growth, and death is about the bio machine, and that bio machine is a biological recording machine. Okay, that's why it is possible for the society through language, through symbols, through training to impose patterns on the bio machine. Okay, that's why the aristocratic education is education, educare, from the timeless demand, the reality. And concerning the bio machine, we cannot talk about education. The bio machine is trained, okay, because another expression for the bio machine or the time dimension is the lower trigram according to the Chinese, and the lower trigram is the animal kingdom. So when we are in the animal kingdom, we are dealing with the bio machine, and we cannot talk about education, but about training. What are the three layers that are involved in training?
Memory must be one of them.
Exact memory. Can you be more precise? Because we have three layers of memory in the bio machine.
Memory of technique. Or...
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Well,
I would.
There's the good old pain and pleasure.
Okay, that's another layer. Matthew gave one layer. Bruce gave another layer. I need a third layer, and I will give the technical word for the layers.
Not like trial and error.
I would put it in the same layer than what Matt just said 2 minutes ago. But it's a good answer, but it's a specific case of the second layer.
I'm not sure, but would it be a memory of justice?
It's debatable. It's debatable. It can be something of the third layer, but I would say that if there is not another answer, I wouldn't give my answer. Okay, I'm waiting for 30 seconds for another answer, just to excite a little bit the discussion. But we already have to. Sorry, go ahead.
Where does perception come in?
Perception would be the same answer than Kelly when he was speaking of the senses and so on.
Okay.
What about technique, craft, discipline, education, learning?
Education would be for the timeless dimension, for beauty, goodness, and truth. And here we are in the bio machine. By technical definition, I'm a little bit a technical man sometimes. By technical definition, we cannot talk about education in the bio machine. I see Susan write repetition. Repetition is a general characteristic of the bio machine. That's very interesting because we are imitation. Kevin wrote imitation, excellent. That is another characteristic of the bio machine. But I'm looking for a third layer. Okay, so repetition and imitation are excellent, but those are general characteristic for training the bio machine. But we already have the layer of the sense perception. We already have the layer of the intellect that Matt mentioned 5 minutes ago. I need the third layer. Okay, repetition. Sorry, go ahead.
Propositional?
Proposition. Can you be more precise? What you mean by propositional?
It's just the fact-based, literal reading of things.
Okay, it would be in intellect. So the same layer that Matt mentioned, the second one. Okay, I will give the answer. The third layer is called the psyche. Okay, social sophistication. So the three layers of the biomachine, first is the sense perceptions. The second is the intellect. The intellect is wording, conceptualizing, imagining, organizing. Okay, that's the layer of the intellect. The layer of the sense perception, the first one. The second one. The third one, I call it the psyche, or being streetwise. Okay, meaning the social sophistication, the social skills. Okay, which require a little bit more sophistication, a little bit more refinement and attention than simply being intellectual. Okay, I'm sorry to be a little bit impolite, but we all know nerds. They're very good in intellectual stuff, but the nerds are quite clumsy, socially speaking. Okay, so the third layer is the layer of social sophistication, and that layer is require more refinement. So the biomachine can be subjected to training for the sense perception. For example, you have a specialist that are very good in tasting wines, for example. They would recognize a bottle from Chateau Lafite 1939, from another Chateau Lafite 1980, for example. That's a training in sense perception, okay? Or the people making perfumes, okay? They would be capable to perceive very refined difference. Another training in sense perception, and it's about the biomachine. A training in the intellect, learning mathematics, learning philosophy, because you can learn philosophy without going to the timeless the reality. Okay, you can learn philosophy just for the words, just for the sentences, just for the ism, just for the doctrines. But if you don't incarnate that in your life, it's not the divine dimension. It's simply the second layer of the biomachine. And of course, the third layer, which is the psyche, the social sophistication, how you can deal with people in a nice manner. You know perfectly the axiom that if you want to get things in life, what is the most important thing that you need to know? I want to ask you guys, if you want to get things in life, what is the principle or the axiom you need to know? That's part of psyche, of being a streetwise.
Help others get what they want.
Okay, go ahead. Did you say something, Bruce?
Yeah, help others get what they want.
Exactly. Excellent. Okay. If you want to get things in life, you know what the other desire. Absolutely. Okay. And that is part of the third layer. Being streetwise, having a good psyche, being sophisticated, socially speaking. Absolutely. So that's the biomachine. Now, I would like to.
Would you say that, sorry, I don't want to derail you, but would
Go
you say
ahead. No,
that
no,
that
go ahead.
also participates in empathy, like being able to feel what the others feel, what someone else feels?
But absolutely, Matt, because the sophist, which is at the third layer, is very capable of empathy. He's capable to read the mind of people. He's capable to talk with people in order for those people to unveil themselves.
Okay. All right, I'll leave it at that. Okay.
Okay. Once again, it's about the intention. You want the other to unveil himself to help him or to manipulate him. So the intention counts, of course. But empathy is not excluded in the fake democratic man or the sophist. On the contrary, it's part of the first sophistication of the third layer of the biomachine.
Do we differentiate empathy with sympathy, like being able to put yourself into the position of the other person, or simply sort of detect what they feel in order to influence? Is there a differentiation there or no?
You make the perfect distinction. Empathy is to be capable to feel what the other feels, but not feeling the same that the other. Okay, so the other is sad. You perceive that the other is sad, but you're not sad. Sympathy, that you would participate in the sadness of the others. Okay, Maureen wrote a very interesting word in the chat, metis. Okay, metis is a Greek word meaning intuition. But intuition not at the highest level. Intuition in the sense of capable to read the mind of the other. Okay, social sophistication. Metis, M-E-T-I-S. Okay, so we deal with the biomachine. Yeah, Maureen wrote cunning. Yes, maybe cunning is a little bit harsh for Metis. I would say cunning, but with intuition too. Now we identify the three layers of the biomachine, and we identify two characteristics of the biomachine: repetitive, imitative. What do you suggest? I did not hear someone talk, but I did not understand. Okay, so repetitive and imitative. Are there other characteristics of the biomachine that you would suggest?
Consider and reject, or consider and accept?
It's interesting. I wouldn't accept your answer because I understand that as emotionally based, okay, influenced by emotions. Okay, the words I was looking for is emotions, but what you said is equivalent to that.
What about instinct driven, like already wired into the material being, you know? Something
Yes,
like that.
I accept your answer. The word I was looking for is mechanical, but instinct is acceptable for me. Biologically speaking, the mechanical dimension of the biomachine has three layers too. The layers of the reflex, okay? The reflex is what? You have a dust in your eye and you wouldn't twink your eyelids, okay? That's a reflex. The instinct, for example, you wouldn't get aroused sexually when you see someone that that has sex appeal to you. So the instinct is a reflex that is much more complex. Okay, when you see, for example, the birds that would have a dance, the main birds that would have a dance, opening the tails like a peacock or things like that. That sequence of movement has been inside their biomachine, that they would do that sequence of movement to please to the female. Okay, so reflex is just one movement, like your eyelid that would move because of a dust of a peck of dust. That's one. The instinct is a sequence of order of movement, and there is a third layer, which is automatism. Automatism is a little bit more complex because it's involved emotion. Okay, for example, you had a fight with someone, and because of the emotion, you remember that you had a fight with that person. And if you're still angry or resentful, even 3 weeks after, that memory will trigger a bad interaction with that person even 3 weeks later. Okay, that kind of thing is called automatism, meaning that the mechanical dimension, but involving emotion. So it's still mechanical, but it's less mechanical than the instinct and the reflexes. Okay, so we have mechanical, we have emotional, we have repetitive, we have imitative. What else do we have? Just there are three other stuff.
Well, we mentioned trial and error or whatever.
Yes, but trial and error is not really yeah, I understand what you mean. It can be
Okay.
it can be put in repetitive, but it's not wrong, but it's not a new one. It's still among the four that we identified.
Can you restate once more the question of what we're
Okay,
accumulating?
what are the 7 characteristics of the biomachine? We said repetitive, imitative, emotional driven. I'm sorry. And the last one you gave, Matt, mechanical.
Quan,
Yeah.
what about, I mean, some people refer to it as, you know, trying to avoid pain and gain pleasure, but I think there's a more advanced idea, just what they call the pursuit of happiness. Is that also part of that, do you think?
Yes, I would call it mechanical, okay? Because the animal will avoid pain and will be attracted to pleasure. So that's in the three layers of mechanical, once again, in reflex, instinct, and automatism, okay? It can be explained by the three layers of mechanicity in the biomachine.
Question, Quan.
Yeah.
So for, let's say we're dealing with learned techniques using patterns or something of the sort, and we're using our memory, we're doing trial and error to learn a thing in that realm. I'm assuming that this is where we're at a certain point we gain insightful, like insight into the techniques that is more than the sum rules of what we were learning. That insight, like where a doctor might know the biomechanics of somebody, they've treated so many people that they kind of have an insight of like what a diagnostic is probably, or plumber, probably same things. Would that insight thing also be involved in this, or is that now participating in the higher realm that we're not there yet?
Thank you for your comment, Matt, because you just add another layer to the 7 characteristic that I call awareness. Because the biomachine is not completely devoid of awareness. It is not primarily characterized by awareness, but it is not completely devoid of awareness. And for the people at the highest of the machine, meaning the third layer of social sophistication, they have awareness, because when you are capable to read the emotions of the other because of his body language, because of his facial feature, because of his face expressions, it's a kind of inferior awareness. And I think that the Greek word that Maureen offered to us, metis, is perfect. Okay, metis. It's the quintessential quality of the sophist. Okay, if you don't reach to metis, you are not at the highest of the animal kingdom. Why the people in the animal kingdom who are capable to manipulate others people are capable to do so? Because they reach to the highest of the small awareness that is available within the animal kingdom, and that is perfectly summarized by the Greek word métis. In French, it's say l'intelligence de la ruse, the intelligence of being cunning. Okay, because cunning alone is, I think, is not enough. The intelligence of being cunning, because there is a drop of awareness there.
So we're still we're still looking for that 7th characteristic now, right? Still?
Yeah, we almost there. We have mechanical, we have awareness, we have repetitive, we have imitative, we have emotional, and we have sequential. Okay, so we have 6 and 7. There's one that is missing, and I give you a small hint. It's a lot related to emotions. Okay, so
Agape?
mechanical. Excuse me.
Agape?
No, come on, Magdalena. Agape is the quality of the aristocratic man. It's the high love.
Yes.
So it's not in the biomachine.
Okay.
Like an aspect of controlling your emotions? Are you referring to something like that?
You're burning. Okay. The key word that you just say is control. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not, the last answer is not easy. Okay, but I want to try maybe for another 2-3 minutes. If by my question I'm capable to bring out the answer. If not, I will give the answer. It's about control. It's about emotion. It's about people in authority.
Chris
restraint,
wrote willpower.
Willpower is interesting because it's very close. If there's nothing better, I would accept willpower.
Or discretion?
No, discretion is more about social sophistication. Um,
About
okay,
intentionality.
excuse me?
Intentionality.
It's about, it has a relation to intentionality, but it's not intentionality. I wouldn't give the answer. I wouldn't explain why all of your answer has a certain link to that. The answer that oh, okay, social standing and interrelation. I think it's the closest. I wouldn't accept that. It's the answer that I wanted is normativity. Okay, what is normativity? It's your society that is defining the rules. And why I said that it has to do with emotions is that most of the animals would look for approbation or would look for approval by the alpha males of their group. Okay, and the alpha males of the group would define what is acceptable, what is valuable. Okay, a little bit like in a college, for example. You know perfectly that people wouldn't study the books that they know, that there would be questions about those books. If they know that at the exam there will be no question about books XYZ, they would not read book XYZ. But at the exam, is there will be question about book ABC, they wouldn't read book ABC. And who will define, who will decide what are the questions that will be asked at the exam? Well, the alpha males at the college, okay, the people in decision. So that's what I mean by normativity, meaning that the people in the animal kingdom, driven by the emotion of their by machine, will go after approval. Okay, so that approval come from certain roles, and those roles are called normativity. A little bit like in the discussion in the Wednesday evening about the sophists, I said that the aristocratic education of the 7th and 6th century BCE in the Greek world was simply that you have to be wise, valorous, humane, and just. So you don't have to talk a lot for being those things. But in the 5th century BCE, because of the transition from aristocracy to democracy, people need to learn how to talk. It's there that the young, rich, and wealthy people that will go to the sophists because they need to learn how to speak fluently and with eloquence. Okay, that's a perfect example of normativity. When the rules of the society was to be just, courageous, wise, and moderate, humane, people would not go to a sophist to learn a skill that would be useless. But when the society transited from aristocracy to democracy, the skill to speak fluently and with eloquence would be something that is valuable, okay, because the rule changed. And because the rule changed, the people would pay the sophist humongous amount of money to learn that skill, to speak with eloquence. Okay, that's what it means by normativity. And to remember the 7 characteristics easily, you use the word marines. Okay, marines, marines, M for mechanical, A for awareness, métis, R for repetitive, I for imitative, N for normative, E for emotional driven, and S for sequential. And it's easy to remember because when you train as a Marines, as a soldier, your biomachine is very solicited and is trained in order to gain speed, in order to gain strength, in order to gain efficiency. All right. So once again, I'm not looking down on the biomachine. The biomachine is useful. If you don't have a good biomachine, you cannot have a good human life. But the biomachine is not characterized by awareness. And the aristocratic education is not characterized by mechanicity, is not characterized by repetition, it's not characterized by imitation, it's not characterized by following the norms, it's not characterized by being emotionally driven in an unconscious manner, and it's not characterized by sequentiality. Okay, those are more the characteristic of the by machine, and it is perfectly correct to develop the 7 characteristics of the by machine because we need them. But to be an aristocrat, you have to be more than the by machine. So I asked the following question: what is a whole man? Okay, so I would like some answer for the following question: what is a whole man, to keep on our discussion?
Well, I'll try something. We spoke in the beginning about the two aspects of the mind. I use the words timeless dimension and the time dimension. I would say that a whole man is someone who integrates both the timeless dimension and the time dimension of his mind into one.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Kevin. And I would like to develop a little bit his answer, because here is a big philosophical question that has been asked by Socrates 24 centuries ago. It's the question of the unity of the virtues. Kevin answered rightly for what is a whole man. I say to you that the unity of the virtues is another answer to the whole man. What is a whole man? I would like people to discuss on what is the unity of the virtues.
Do we not have to lay out the virtues?
It's certainly a step, so please.
Well, like
Yes.
one virtue being courage.
Okay, courage.
Sorry.
Okay,
Anyone else?
courage. Okay, so we have one by Matthew, courage or valor. Okay, I use valor, but it's the same. Is it? Go ahead, please. Don't be shy.
Well, it's using the best of all our faculties. So it's just about everything we discussed so far.
Okay, but can you name a virtue? Okay, anyone that you think is part of the major virtues?
Love and belonging.
Love. Okay, I understood love, but I did not understand the other word.
Belonging.
Temperance.
He said belonging.
Belonging. Okay. I would say that belonging is more a need for me. It's more an emotional need to belong to a group rather than a virtue. But love is certainly an answer. Yes.
But we're developing all our physical strengths, our emotional strengths, and balance. It's all, we're getting the best of all that and balancing it all out.
Everything you said, Kelly, I put it in valor. Okay, because valor is a lot of things. Developing emotional balance, developing physical prowess or strength or balance. I put all of those stuffs in valor.
Generosity?
Generosity is part of valor too. You will see that valor, there's a lot of things in valor.
Justice.
Excuse me?
Justice.
Justice. Interesting. That's another virtue. So you have justice and we have valor. And
truthfulness.
Truth, yes. In terms of active virtue, it's called wisdom. I accept your answer, because truth is the name of the timeless form, and the timeless form of truth correspond actively in human life in the time dimension to wisdom. So we have here wisdom, valor, justice. What do you have? What do we have more than that?
Temperance. Somebody said temperance.
Temperance, absolute.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. temperance or moderation. Okay, I'm used to say moderation, but temperance is exactly the same. So what the Greeks and the Chinese of ancient times and of modern times call the four cardinal virtues are justice, valor, moderation or temperance, and wisdom. That's the unity of the four virtues.
Question.
Yes.
Is justice or love of justice more the way to say it? I don't, is it just, is justice alone adequate?
I would say that I understand your nuance, and you're right to bring that nuance in the sense that you have an inner sense of justice and of morality. That's what it means. Okay. I would say that usually I say justice, but the nuance you just brought is perfect.
I have a question myself too. So we just mentioned the four cardinal virtues. To repeat, that would be justice, temperance, valor, and wisdom.
Yeah.
Are those four cardinal virtues, do they transcend the time and timeless dimension, or are they situated in one or the other?
Thank you, Kevin, for the question, because it would allow me to talk about the 10 gardens of the 9 muses. In timelessness, according to the teaching of Plato and Confucius, it's called the timeless form of beauty, goodness, and truth. Okay, corresponding to the 4th layer for beauty, to the 5th layer for goodness, and to the 6th layer for truth. Okay, the 3 lines of the timeless dimension. In time, justice, beauty is translated as justice. In time, goodness is translated as valor and temperance or moderation. And in time, truth is translated as wisdom. So the question here, because that is what is implied in your question, how do we move from the biomachine to the first line or the first timeless form of beauty? Because that is there. That is the aristocratic education. Okay? Because the biomachine is a stuff that needs training. And the training is what the society gives you. But now I want to insist on the gift of the home, or for those who once again believe in God, the gift of God, God's gift, which is the timeless forms. And those timeless forms is not subjected to a training, is subjected to an education to bring forth what is from within. But in time, there is a process called the classical education that can ignite, that can kindle, that can open the journey from 3 to 4. According to you, what are those possibilities? What are those tools for that journey to happen?
I have a question about beauty.
Yes.
Well, I mean, we mentioned, like, goodness, truth, and beauty, and like beauty. When it comes to my mind, I think I like a flower or something symmetrical. There's more to that, though, right?
Yes, because you are okay. The 10 since there are 9 muses and there are 10 gardens, I call the gardens 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, when you're speaking of symmetry of a flower, it's about garden 0. So you are at the entrance of beauty.
Okay, so beauty as well means to me, I don't know, it's not symmetrical, but a car, when the motor's running and it's driving down the road nice and smooth, to me that's something beautiful.
Absolutely.
It's all these parts working together. That's beauty as well. It's something that works.
Yeah,
works
something
good.
something that works and all the part working together beautifully. There's a word for that, Kelly. What is that word?
Harmony.
Absolutely, harmony. Okay, so we are here speaking of harmonic proportions.
All right.
So
Beauty is almost, we can say, something that's harmonically proportioned.
yes,
And
absolutely.
generally.
Exactly. And that harmonic proportion has 10 degrees according to the teaching of the muses. Okay, you have 9 muses, but there's one muse that is responsible for 2 gardens, garden 0 and garden 1. We just identify, thanks to you, Kelly, garden 0, which is the garden of mathematics. Okay, symmetry, numbers, things like that. Mathematics is garden 0, is the entrance of beauty, but there's more to beauty, at least 9 others gardens. I will give the name of the garden number 1 is astronomy. Okay, so 0 is mathematics and 1 is astronomy, and the muse responsible for those 2 gardens is called Urania, Urania. What would be the next level of beauty according to you?
About solid geometry.
Geometry is part of maths. So
Music.
Music, yes. Music is the garden number 2 and is under the muse of music called Euterpe, Euterpe. Okay, so it's another kind of harmonic proportion, but let's say of a superior level.
Like poetry.
Okay, what kind of poetry? There are 4 kinds of poetry among the muse. So I accept your question, your answer. It's
you mean like in a metrical?
yes, because you have erotic poetry, you have lyric poetry, you have pastoral poetry, you have epic poetry, and if you accept tragedy and comedy as a kind of poetry, you answer to 6 questions at what poetry, Kelly. So
for me, poetry it's a very general subject. I'm not good at differentiating between them.
Okay, so after the muse of music, you have the muse of dance. Okay, the name is Terpsichore, Terpsichore. So mathematics, astronomy, dance, and music, they are together. Okay, the 10 gardens or the 9 muses, I group them in 3 general sets or groups. Okay, so the first group is mathematics and astronomy, music and dance. And now we go to a higher group of 3. What would be the beautiful stuff that would go into that second group of 3?
What about grammar?
Yes, I accept that, because there is a muse of eloquence. Okay, and I accept grammar because it's part of eloquence. And the muse of eloquence is also the muse of religious hymns, and her name is Polyhymnia, Polyhymnia, and it's precisely garden number 4.
Would you put singing in music, or is it something else?
Yes, singing is put with music, yes. Or with polyhymnia, okay, for religious hymns, because you have singing in religious hymns.
Where would you put the dialectic?
Dialectic is something higher than beauty.
Fair enough.
Where do you put vibration?
Vibration?
Vibration.
Vibration. Do you consider that as a domain of beauty?
As a fundamental of our being.
Yeah, I understand what you mean, but I would say that your answer, I would call it a expression of awareness, okay? Because when you say a state of our being, a state of awareness, I would say the same, a state of vibration of our inner being. So your answer is much more fundamental than just a domain of beauty.
Chris writes opera theater.
Yes, theater. Okay, I accept theater because it includes comedy and tragedy. And comedy and tragedy is at the last group of three. So I wouldn't mention them when we would reach there. But we already identify tragedy and comedy. So for the second group of three, we identify polyhymnia. We also have erato, because Kelly spoke about poetry, so I would call erato, E-R-A-T-O, who is the muse of erotic and lyric poetry. Okay, and it's very interesting here that erotic and lyric poetries are put together, because erotic poetry is about the beauty of the flesh, the beauty of the body, of course, and lyric poetry is about pure enthusiasm. So it's very interesting, because pure enthusiasm, because of love, because of you understand something, you have a eureka moment, because of beautiful music, because of a beautiful dance, etc. So you have the erotic poetry celebrating the enthusiasm of a romantic love, okay, of a love that has been kindled by an attraction to physical beauty. But at the same time, it's the same muse, Erado, which is the patron of, or the supervisor, or the director of the gardens of lyric poetry, which is all the other enthusiasm, all the other situation where you feel the divine within you, okay? That you feel a flame of excitement, of enthusiasm, of celebration, of discovery, of creativity. So it's very interesting that they put the first stage of love with the last stage of love at the same time with the same muse. And the last one of that group is Calliope, Calliope. And Calliope is the muse of epic poetry. Okay, epic is from the Greek word epos, and epos means good. Good poetry, what is good poetry for the ancient Greeks? Is the poetry celebrating the virtuous man, the heroes, the people capable precisely of valor, of moderation, of wisdom, and of justice, precisely. That is epic poetry, okay? And it's not a surprise that she's just above errado, celebrating erotic poetry and lyric poetry. And after that, you have epic poetry. And Calliope is also the muse of science, of art, of philosophy, of literature. And Calliope is the oldest of the nine muses. So it's not a surprise that she's responsible for a lot of stuff. And now we enter in the last group of three. And the muse for tragedy, Melpomene, Melpomene, has already been mentioned. And the muse for comedy and pastoral poetry. So pastoral poetry is about the poetry of the countryside, of a quiet life, of a philosophical life, okay? And why do I put comedy above tragedy? Because I think that comedy is more difficult than tragedy. It's not easy to write tragedy, but it's even more difficult to write comedy, because it's very easy to laugh at the other, okay? To turn the other into derision, to look down at him. But to write a noble comedy, when you can give a philosophical lesson, you can give a deep lesson about life, that everyone will laugh of a good laughter, okay? Not because someone has been ridiculed, but because of a discovery of a truth, and that everyone would laugh together. That is very difficult. I see that they want to have a thought on that. You can talk now, Dave, if you want, because we don't have a typical presentation.
Oh, hi, yeah, I'm in another room here. I was just thinking in Socrates, the last thing he says in the symposium when they're talking, the guy's telling the story of what Socrates said at the symposium. And he said, yeah, last thing Socrates was saying something about how the writer of tragedies should also be able to write comedies. And that was the last thing in the dialogue, which I thought was actually pretty funny and profound, right? Because they're flip side of the same, two sides of the same coin. And yet we tend to think of them as very different. But yeah, there's a subtlety in there are two modes, right? And we have to be able to ideally all of us think in both, but it was just funny that he said, yeah, the great tragedian has to write great comedies as well. There's a fun irony there.
Absolutely. And
Does
there's
that
a
also mean inversely that the great comedian must also be able to write great tragedies as well?
Yeah.
Inversely?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fun idea.
The
I have a
two sides of the
question,
same coin. Sorry, go ahead, Kelly.
Thanks. I keep thinking of this word irony. Does this fit in somewhere? Like irony it's something that should be the same, but it's different. It's something confusing, so we call it ironic, and it's funny.
Yeah. So
Does
first,
this fit in anywhere?
I would like you to give a definition of irony. What do you think? What is irony for you?
Irony to me is it's something. It's when you think of something on one hand it's something that okay, everything worked this way and that's fine, but then wait a minute, there's maybe an odd consequence or something almost the opposite of what you thought would happen.
The opposite, okay? So when I'm ironical, when I say something ironical, I say something that the opposite of what I think, right?
Or yeah, or like a play on words, or
okay. Okay, the basic irony, at the simplest irony, is that I say something, but what I say is the opposite of what I think. So there is a distance between what I say and between what I think. Okay, suppose that I think that Trudeau is an imbecile, but I say that Trudeau is a great statesman. Okay, that's an example of irony. What I say is not what I think.
How is that different from sarcasm? Or is it like a cousin?
What do you think, Matt? What is the difference with sarcasm? Because that's true what you said. What I just said is a variety of irony that is specifically called sarcasm. So sarcasm is a subgroup of irony.
Yeah, that's how I think of it. I don't have a clear idea. I just think of irony as a more subtle, a sophisticated sarcasm, or sarcasm is a more bastard, or not bastard, but like diffused form of irony. That's how I think about it.
Sarcasm is a specific case of irony. So irony is a bigger category.
Yeah.
Like I'm listening to music or something, and it should make me happy and joyful, but then for some strange reason I might want to cry, even though I should be happy.
Yeah,
to me that's irony.
That's a paradox.
Okay. So now, okay. Is there a difference between irony and a paradox?
Okay, so there are two other layers at least of irony, okay? When the Greeks were creating their tragedy or their comedy, the full significance of a character's word or actions are clear to the audience or the reader, but is unknown to the character. Okay, here you have to be very attentive to understand that. In Greek tragedy, the basic definition of irony is that for us who read the comedy or the tragedy, or who watch the presentation of the comedy or the tragedy, we see the character clearly for what he is. But at the same time, you have to understand that from the perspective of the playwright, the character is not clear about himself. What philosophical lesson do you understand from that technique?
We feel superior. We're not we see what he doesn't see. And
yeah, sure.
He's performing.
That's what the playwright want us to understand.
Self-reflection?
Interesting. As part of that, self-reflection.
Learned ignorance?
Yes, it's part also of that. We, the spectators, okay, the people watching or reading, we are in the position of being aware, okay? And the character, he will express his doubt, he will express his thoughts and so on, but his general attitude shows that he doesn't understand himself. Okay, what is the metaphor here?
Revelation or self-revelation?
Yes. If you think deeply about that, the character is a personality, okay? It's the by machine. And us, we play the role of awareness, okay? So the ancient Greek playwrights wanted to make the distinction between personality, individuality, and awareness or universal consciousness. Let's not forget that the word, the persona, and it's not the first time I say it, but it's worth repeating it. Persona is from two Latin words, persona, per, through, sona, the sound. And that's the name of the mask with a kind of funnel around the mouth that the actors in ancient Greece and ancient Rome were wearing on their face because there were no electronic micro at the time. So the funnel around the mask, around the mouth, was a mechanical microphone, okay, to amplify the voice. But also the mask was a way to identify what kind of character is that person, right? So the ancient Greek playwright was demonstrating psychodynamic understanding in the sense that the character on the stage represent your own personality, okay, with the doubts, with the uncertainty, with the non-understanding. And you, because of the chorus, because let's not forget that in a Greek tragedy or Greek comedy, you have the characters, but you also have the chorus that would summarize things, that would say things that the character normally is not aware of, okay? So we as spectators, we are aware of the behavior, of the attitude, of the words of the character, and at the same time, what is said by the chorus, which symbolize the individuality, and we, because we watch on this, we are awareness, okay? So it was a very subtle way to make us understand that in our mind, there are three layers, psychodynamically speaking: the personality given by the society, the individuality given to us by us when we do our things, and the supreme layers, which is pure consciousness, meaning that is that enlightenment that make you capable to see inside you your own personality, meaning the voices coming from the past, what has been put in your mind in your past when you were young, when you were a young man, etc. And were you capable to do your things? Okay, are you only a personality? How can I say a personality, meaning the accumulation of voices of the people having had authority over you in the past, or were you valorous enough to do your own things at a certain moment? And finally, universal consciousness, which is the last layer. But there's another definition of irony.
Is it fate? Fatus or the fates? I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Irony here can be understood as a state of affairs or an event that seems deliberately contrary to what one expects and is often amusing as a result. Okay. you can think that the irony is that I thought that he could help me. Okay, I thought that he could help me, but in reality, he was not capable to help me. Okay, so it's a situation in which there was a opposite reality to what you expected. So either in words, in action, or in place, what is the word that would summarize or synthesize the idea of irony?
Comedy of errors.
Opposition?
No, you say it. Opposite, exactly. The central notion of irony is opposite. Opposite, okay? Either opposition between what you say and what you think, opposition between what you think that would happen and the reality that happened, or opposition between the reality of the opposition in psychodynamic between the personality, the individuality, and the universal consciousness. With the word opposition, what would you think about the journey of the mind? What make you make the link, a meaningful link, with the journey of the mind with the word opposition? Let's not forget what I said at first question. It might help you to answer. I don't know if my question is clear. We discover that the central element of irony is opposition, the opposite, okay, either in language, in place, or in real situation. With that idea of opposition, what is the link with the mind exploration that we are doing today?
Series, isn't there? Cause.
Excuse me, I did not understand. I'm sorry.
So you're realizing your error, and you're realizing that through time. So you're realizing you had a certain belief about something, and the reality is you're realizing it through time. Like maybe I'm grasping at that.
Okay, that's the irony concerning the opposition between what you thought that would happen and the reality. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's sort of what I was thinking as
overall-
well.
But what is the link?
Oh,
okay, go ahead, man.
well, Patrick, I know has a thought there too. I was
Okay,
gonna.
what about
go ahead.
Okay, no problem. What about the idea of, like Plato talks about, the one out of the many? Once you start understanding these contradictions, is to bring those into a cohesiveness.
Okay, I think that you have the key words here: one and many. And when we speak of one and many, we speak of being and becoming. And before I finish my sentence, I would like to hear Matt.
I was just gonna say knowledge and contrasting knowledge and ignorance. It's opposite. So playing around with those
Absolutely.
opposites.
I was looking for something like that. I was looking for, in the exploration of the mind, the opposition is between the biomachine and awareness. Okay? Because the two dimensions of the mind that we need, both the mind machine and the awareness dimension, the lower trigram, the upper trigram, becoming and being. And when I say to the other gentleman that he got the right answer, one and the many. Okay, one is the being, the many is becoming. Okay, it's another way to answer to that question. Okay, the idea of irony, of opposition, because the idea of irony is at the center of the exploration of the mind, because the two basic components of our mind, there is a becoming dimension and it's a being reality, and those two are in dialectical interactions. That's why irony is so important in terms of relations between thought and words, relation between words, relation between events and what we think that would happen, and relation into the different components of the mind, as the Greek playwrights were capable to do by making the distinction between the characters. the chorus and the spectators. But those spectators are not passive spectators, they are active spectators because they play the role of pure awareness, looking at the personality on the stage and at the individuality, which is the chorus.
And then after they discover this irony, somewhere, if you ponder, if you explore that irony that you discovered, it's possible you can uncover a fundamental truth about that whole idea.
But the fundamental truth, according to me at least, is that our mind is a paradoxical interaction, ironical interaction between the biomachine and timeless awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Quan,
Okay, that's is yes.
could you say it's like we have in our minds a dialogue between our biomechanical and our timeless awareness? Is that a good way to describe it?
Absolutely, Jerry. And Plato gave a beautiful metaphor for that, and that is the metaphor of the charioteer, right? Because for Plato, the biomachine is the chariot plus the black horse and the white horse. And awareness is the charioteer. And that is the fundamental irony of human reality.
Hmm.
Yes, Jerry wrote in the Phaedrus, but also in the Republic. Okay, so I think that we have explored enough irony. I will take the next 3 minutes to recapitulate the 10 gardens, and we did not finish because garden 0 is mathematics, garden 1 is astronomy and is Urania. Garden 2 is utopy for music. Garden 3 is terpsichore for dance. Garden 4 is polyhymnia for eloquence and religious hymns. Garden 5 is erato for erotic poetry and lyric poetry. Garden 6 is Calliope for philosophy, literature, science, arts, and epic poetry. Garden 7 is Melpomene for tragedy. Garden 8, 9 is Thalia for comedy. And Garden 10 is universal history. And the name of the muse is Clio, C-L-I-O. And why, my next question is, why do I think that tragedy and comedy and universal history corresponding to the highest form of beauty, which is justice, is in the same group? Why?
They're all communing with the infinite. They're all in harmony or in dialect with the infinite.
Yeah, it's an answer that is interesting for me. I would like to hear one or two others answer before I suggest my answer.
Plato describes justice, the tripart nature of the soul, and the unification of the reason, spirited part, and desired part.
Yeah, okay. Another answer?
They all deal most directly with the human condition specifically, as far as
You're burning, Matt, but be a little bit more precise, please. It's about the human condition, but
the lived human condition in the so-called material world of customs of yeah, not quite capturing it.
Or the
okay.
truth of human condition.
Yeah, I think that you both have, let's say, the core of the answer. I put the three together because let's not forget that the last one, Clio, is the muse of universal history, okay? And universal history, the direction of universal history, is from the plutocratic man for whom might is right to the aristocratic man using might for serving right, okay? That is the direction of universal history. From might is right to my serving right. And why do I put comedy and tragedy with universal history? Because before we have enough aristocratic man to achieve the end goal of universal history, meaning the travel, the journey from my is right to my serving right, history will always alternate between tragedy first and a farce second, okay? A comedy. So as long as there is not enough aristocratic man to go directly to the end goal of universal history, meaning my sovereign right, chronological history will most of the time alternate between tragedy and farce or comedy. And when you guys were speaking of the human condition and what is related to what we are doing daily, it's not wrong. It's on the individual level, but I was looking more for a level that would include all mankind with the idea of the direction and the end goal of universal history. But it's sure that our daily tragedies and farces contribute to the collective tragedy and farces, obviously.
So Kleos would be the Logos or the Holy Spirit.
Not
not
well,
quite, or
yeah,
those...
yeah, because you, sorry, you are right. So Cleo is at the first level of the timeless form of justice, absolutely. Because according to the Christian terminology, it's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. According to Plato, it's truth, goodness, and beauty. Okay, so beauty is at the place of the Holy Spirit, absolutely.
I guess ultimately, life would render to a spiritual awareness. Plato would describe, the most beautiful light of being.
Once again, we're coming back to the basic irony of human condition. The very strange or the very paradoxical, but it's the reality of a biomachine with absolute awareness. And probably, I am not looking down on the machine, understand me. I think that the human body is probably the most outstanding and the most awesome biomachine in the whole universe. So I want people to be sure that I'm not looking down here on the biomachine.
Why? Okay, because we have a bigger brain?
No, it's simply because that the whole man is the biomachine plus his pure awareness, okay? If I go back to the metaphor of the charioteer by Plato, the charioteer would be completely ridiculous without the two horses and without the chariot.
So I have a question. I don't know if this is getting us off topic, but you'd mentioned in the past that this all comes probably from ancient Sumer and Egypt, if that's that seems to be likely at any rate. And we find the similar. I mean, the similarities are. There's a lot of between Platonic ideals and then between Christianity and how do you account for? I mean, yeah, it was the Egyptians, but I mean, it almost, and I don't even think it makes any difference. But if anyone's read like the Syrian experiments by Doris Lessing, one of the one of the themes in the book was that there were these ancient aliens who originally taught us these traditions with rocks and rituals to perform, and every society that had civilization that had crumbled had gotten away from those traditions, and that pretty much the religious history as well. Not to suggest, I mean, it wouldn't make any difference if they're ancient aliens, but doesn't that seem, I mean, how do you account for
well, I have a very down to earth answer to that. We all human beings, okay? Those that wisdom was not the privilege of Confucius. It was not the privilege of Plato. It was not the privilege of the Egyptian. It was not the privilege of the Sumerian. It was the privilege of our human condition. And when you have a high enough advanced civilization, you would have that ironical teaching. Okay, I call that the ironical teaching. That discovery, that fundamental discovery that we are by a machine in deep interaction with pure awareness. And all high civilization reached to that conclusion. And I read a little bit of stuff from ancient Sumer, of course, of Egypt. I don't have the intention to repeat the words they use here because it would be we lose time with those technicalities, because what is important is not to know the words that the Egyptians use or the Sumerians use or the Chinese word use or the Greeks use. What is important is precisely to use that map to go to the upper trigram, to go to that pure awareness that our two horses are not two wine horses, but those two horses and down with a charioteer. Okay, when I said that 5 minutes ago that without the two horses and the charioteer would look completely ridiculous. Well, I would like to say that the two horses with the chariot, but without a charioteer, they would not look ridiculous, but they would be absolutely dangerous. And I think that it's much more a preoccupation to be dangerous than to look ridiculous. So beyond the words, and once again, we can all make a comparison, and I am one that is guilty of making comparison between the different civilizations. But what is important is not the words, but using a map that you like, and you choose the map you like, the map by Plato, the map by Confucius, the map by the Christian education, the map by the Egyptian, if you like a lot those things, but use it in the reality of your life so that the charioteer appear in your chariot, in the bio machine. You seem to want to say something, Matt. Maybe I misread your
No,
face.
no, no. I was just nodding silently in approval. I appreciated that.
Okay. So other question or comment? If not, I go to the next phase of my presentation. Okay. So there is no more question about that. I want to come back once again to the notion of the unity of the four virtues, because that is the central question. Okay. So if there are three things that I would like you to remember today, is that the classical education or the aristocratic education is an ironical education. And remember the playwrights from ancient Greece. Okay. The character, the chorus, and the watchers. Okay, I prefer to say the watchers than the spectators, because in the word watchers, you have a more dynamic and a more active connotation. So it's an ironical education. It's the appearance of the charioteer in reality that you have to make, and not learning the words from the different tradition, even if learning the words from the different tradition are useful, of course. And I don't use them very much, because if you are interested, read my article. So it was a small advertisement for my article. And the last thing that I want you guys to remember, the unity of the four virtues. Okay, we were speaking of valor, moderation, justice, and wisdom. But what is fundamental? What is foundational? What is essential? What is vital? Making the unity of those stuff.
Is there a question there?
Yes, that's a question. What is essential? What is vital? What is foundational? Making the unity of those stuff, of those four cardinal virtues.
Plato describes that as the great lie, or the dangerous lie, that God is. And he goes on to describe going through fear, pain, pleasure, and desires, and applying the four virtues: temperance, fortitude, wisdom, justice. I don't know if that's what you're
Okay,
looking
but
at.
what is the unity for you? What is the unity? What's make those four stuff be a unity?
Well, for myself, I think it's having an experience with something greater than myself. It allows me to look at those things and aspects of, like all the things you talked about, controlling all those aspects of the human condition, like you say, the bio machine, in order to, fulfill a greater need within yourself, or see the potential within yourself and overall within humanity.
Cognition?
Excuse me, Madalena, can you repeat?
Cognition?
Cognition, which is would be the second layer, intellect. Okay, it's a technical word to say intellect.
I noticed that in Plato's dialogues, any of the virtues may or may not be good if they're associated or tempered by wisdom. So when wisdom is absent, courage can be used to do things that are destructive, or temperance can be done for the wrong reasons to a destructive end. But when wisdom is present, they always become good. So I would say wisdom.
Interesting. I would say that there is another layer to the answer, but I would like to repeat your answer with my words, right? Let's not forget that we are in the timeless reality, and the timeless reality is one, but that one is three, and three is also one. Okay, so that one is being, and that being has three intrinsic, consubstantial attributes that are called beauty, goodness, and truth. Why they are one? As Matt said, beauty is not complete without goodness and truth. Goodness is not complete without beauty and truth. And truth is not complete without beauty and goodness. Okay? So that's why they are three, but they are also one and one, but also three. That is one aspect of the answer that I was looking for. And what Matt said is enough to say that it is what make the unity of the four virtues, because let's not forget that in timelessness, it's called beauty, goodness, and truth. But in time, because beauty, goodness, and truth is not four, it's three, right? But when I'm speaking of the four virtue, let us forget that in timelessness, you have a correspondence with time, and with beauty, you have justice. With goodness, you have valor and moderation, and with truth, you have wisdom. So you have four virtues. So that explains the unity of the three timeless form, or the unity of the four virtues. That is certainly one explanation. But what is the foundational reality? What is the foundational substance that make the unity of the four virtues? That foundational substance is present in each of those four virtues.
The three goodness, truth, and beauty is common in all of them.
Yes, that is
like
when
the three
you
into the four kind of thing. Like this.
Okay. What make the difference between the being dimension and the biomachine dimension? What is the stuff that absolutely make the difference between the biomachine dimension and the timeless dimension? when I was saying that the mode of development for the biomachine is training, and the mode of development for timelessness is education to bring forth what is from within. Maureen wrote in the chat that is love. It's interesting because love is a synonym with the word that I want, okay? But what is the essential quality of the being dimension that is not a lot in the biomachine? Okay, Kevin.
Will?
What?
The will.
Okay, will is a function of that.
All right.
Will is the same than valor. Okay.
Awareness of the
awareness. Thank you. Who said awareness? I understood awareness. Okay, it's you. Okay, it's Dave. Is it that?
No,
How do you pronounce your family name?
Well, my husband's here, Dave, and I'm Sue.
I'm sorry. Okay. And how do you pronounce your family name? Vowen?
Wah.
Va. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. The essential foundational ingredient, if I may use the word ingredient, okay, that make the stark difference between the timeless dimension and the biomachine is awareness. Okay, awareness of the biomachine and awareness of the timeless form. That is the foundational ingredient that make the unity of the three timeless form, or that's make the unity of the four correspondent cardinal virtue. With that in mind, I would like the people to invent a short sentence to describe the epistemological journey, meaning the travel from the sense perception to truth, sense perception, intellect, psyche, beauty, goodness, truth, okay? That is the epistemological journey. With that in mind, I would like people to invent a sentence, not too long, let's say 10 words, describing the epistemological journey, but using the word awareness. It can be 5 words. So let's say from 5 to 15 words. Don't be shy. Try something. Okay, awareness.
All right,
okay,
I'll toss out something. Oh, okay, Chris first, I guess. Yeah, you could read Chris's thing.
Go ahead, Matt, because it disappeared from my screen.
Oh, well, here, I'll just read out Chris's first. Chris says, awareness of timelessness in the unfolding of time.
Certainly a very beautiful definition for sure. There's no good answer. Okay, that was a very good answer. So all answers would be good.
So
Matt,
if I were to say something like awareness of limitations and boundedness that are subsumed by a higher reality of unbounded truth or something like that, that would still be a sufficient sort of thing.
Absolutely, because I think that you said in your own words, what is the ironical education? Okay, the ironical education is the awareness that we are a biomachine dancing with pure awareness. Or we are pure awareness having a biomachine. You can say it in the direction you want. So it's certainly a very good.
Gerald has one where he writes awareness of many to an awareness of one.
Magnificent. Okay, it's another way to say becoming and being, time and timelessness, phenomena and principles. Absolutely. That's why I want people to play with that. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
Oh, I mean,
Yes.
I don't want to say anything that might derail the flow from where you're taking or where you're moving towards. So I have trepidation in saying this question, but I guess I'll ask it, and you don't have to answer it if you're going to go there anyway. For those who are, because it seems like what we're saying, these different configurations of the language regarding the conjunction of, or the ironical conjunction of being and becoming, can also be stated from somebody who is not in any way animated by a love of goodness, or honesty or anything of a more ontologically good quality, or it could be said by somebody who is animated by these things. So I'm just wondering, is there an implicit goodness in these statements in your mind? And if so, I guess, is that where you're taking this in that orientation, or?
Yes, my answer is very personal. Okay.
Mm.
I feel that there is a very good energy in our discussion. So because of that good energy in our discussion, there's enthusiasm. Okay, there's the divine within. Okay, I see that people try things, and they are playful when they try things. Okay, because it's a game. Okay, it's a philosophical game, and I'm very happy that people are actively participating. Okay, because I think it's the 10th or the 12th time that I am giving lectures in Rising Tide Foundation. And I didn't want to keep on with the boring presentation as I have done before. I wanted something playful. I wanted a dialogue. I want some enthusiasm. That's why I changed my formula, and I'm absolutely delighted and ecstatic because I see that people are participating, and I feel that there's a good energy. So yes, it goes to goodness because I don't feel that there is the will to deceive or the will to show off. Yes, in this group, what I feel from the energy, yes, it brings to goodness, it brings to beauty, it brings to awareness, because there is an atmosphere of playful exploration and playful participation with enthusiasm.
Okay, cool.
That being said, I want to say that the same words can be used by sophists that would use the same word, but for show off, for domination, and for manipulating people. Here, you see that that's the ironical lesson too. Okay, you have to be aware because words and statements are not enough.
So I got a question, unless you wanted to keep it moving in a sort of direction.
I want the question because I want active participation.
Okay. All right. So in reading through a lot of the philosophical texts of figures of the empire representing the more the not so beautiful side of the things shaping our history or misshaping our history. There's a lot of occurrences of those who give Plato a very bad name, in the form of a lot of, I won't say all, but a lot of the Neoplatonists, John Ruskin and his school, Pre-Raphaelites and stuff. They will acknowledge a lot of these things, and they'll often speak very well of the timeless forms of truth, beauty, and goodness. But when I look at the thing that they devote themselves to, it's very much opposite the thing that all of us here in this digital room love. And so I'm just curious, what are they missing? These different occult Neoplatonic schools, such that they are the consequence of what they become devoted to with this awareness of the infinite and the finite conjunction. What do they lack in your mind?
Well, I think that you are being playful here, Matt. I think you know the answer. They are lacking the substance of being. They don't have the awareness. They have the by machine. Those sophists at reach to the third layer of the mind. They are socially sophisticated. And I would like to bring back the 10 garden of the muses, right? Because if I use the symbol of the Chinese symbol of the hexagram, meaning the 6 line, symbolizing the 6 layers of mind development with the lower 3 lines, the lower trigram, and the upper 3 lines, the being, the one, or the timeless reality, you have a space. The space is the you have the gardens of the 10 gardens of the 9 muses in the space, right? And the 10 garden is the garden of Clio, universal history, corresponding to the inner sense of justice. As long as you did not finish your journey to the 10 garden, you're not really in the timeless reality. You're not those sophisticated sophists. If you remember the gardens, they can be very good mathematicians. They can be very good musicians. They can be very good dancers. They can be very good astronomers. They can be very eloquent. They can compose marvelous religious hymns. They can be outstanding poets in lyric poetry, in erotic poetry, in epic poetry. They can be marvelous philosophers. They can be marvelous writers. They can be marvelous painters. They can be marvelous architects. And it's not fake. Their talents are real, okay? Because they travel to those gardens. But those gardens are not yet the ultimate garden of Clio, of justice, of the true substance, of awareness. They can write marvelous tragedy, marvelous comedies, marvelous pastoral poetries, poems. But as long as you are not in the last station, okay, the station of Clio, of universal history, where you truly have a sense of inner morality, of inner justice that is spontaneous and natural, you're not in the divine kingdom and you can fall back. Well, you are always a sophist at the garden 9, okay? You are very high sophist, you are very sophisticated sophist. Probably that most people think that you are enlightened, okay? But you're not in the reality of being. You're sophist. And the case that you mentioned, Ruskin's, and I read books by Ruskin. It's absolutely awesome. I love it from a literary perspective, a philosophical perspective, not the true position, the text, the beauty of the sentences. Ruskin is a giant in literature, okay? But he's a sophist.
Yeah.
Why? Because he never reached the 10 garden.
I like that answer. That's good. Kevin has a hand up. You're still on mute. You know that.
Yes.
Okay.
You're mute, Kevin.
Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I had a question earlier, but I had to leave promptly, and so I'm going to ask it now. It was when we were talking about beauty, but I think in the broader context of the epistemological development, I think my question is pertinent. I was wondering, because I'm a math teacher, so I deal with children, right? And one of the things that I find that the best children who will be really good at mathematics will be basically children who have some kind of playful exploration about mathematics and don't see it as a fixed subject. But so it got me thinking about children, and there's something beautiful about children, and more broadly about the role of innocence, or and I don't have I don't have a better word than innocence, but where does that concept fit in this whole talk about the epistemological journey, because it seems in our culture today there is a period in someone's life where when they are very young, they are very open to this playful exploration. There's something about the innocence that make learning more fruitful, and then most people tend to lose that. So what do you think about innocence in all of that?
Kevin, I thank you a googolplex times for your question, because I almost forgot a very important point. I will shock people a little bit, because innocent for me is associated with the notion of dumb innocence. Dumb innocence is something that you have spontaneously, and true innocence is when you travel on the epistemological journey. And we have an imbalance in our education nowadays, because I would like you to ask a question first, and I would never forget your question, believe me. At what age does the biomachine begin to be really running? From what age the biomachine begin to be really running, and what is the criterion to choose that age?
Well, quickly, I would say puberty, because that's when you have the sexual urges that start coming out.
My dear Kevin, it's too late.
Oh, okay.
And you could see why when I would give you the reason.
Okay.
Was your question? Sorry, could you restate your question a little?
Yes. At what age the biomachine will begin to run, will truly begin to run? Okay, I said that the biomachine is a recording machine, a biological recording machine. At what age will the biological recording machine or the biomachine start to function seriously? From what age and why?
Maureen says 7.
I'm curious what Magdalena thinks.
Oh yeah, Magdalena works a lot of kids.
2 to 3.
Alan says 2 to 3. Okay.
I think it happens when the child recognizes that mom and dad are not gods anymore, that they're infallible too.
Meaning what age in terms of numbers, Magdalena?
He's asking you, when did you discover there was no Santa Claus?
Yeah.
No, when I discovered that my mom and my dad were not infallible, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
What is at what age in terms of number?
4.
Okay, 4. You say 4. Alan said 2. Can you say why, Alan?
Because the brain is making more neurons, etc., at that age, or more than it needs, and then it starts to slough off after 3.
Okay.
There's been a consolidation in neuroplasticity at that point.
Okay, my answer is 2 years old, and the why? It's because most people start to talk at 2 years old. Okay. Why at 2 years old? Because let's not forget the layers of the mind. The first layer is the sense perception. The second layer is intellect, and intellect is wording, conceptualizing, and imaging, right? So the machine will be very powerful from 2 years old, because the child is beginning to talk. Okay, and that is the main engine of the biomachine, of the human biomachine. Okay, because for a monkey, for a dog, for a bird, it would be another criterion. But I'm speaking of the human biomachine.
Okay.
Talking is very important for the biomachine, for the human beings. And what is the imbalance in our society?
Talking too much.
Thinking too little, talking too much.
Well, thinking is talking inside your mind. Okay, so thinking for me is a form of talking, inner talking.
can you rephrase your question? Because I don't understand the imbalance part of the question.
Yes, because, okay, my question cannot be clearer than that. What is the imbalance in our society in terms of educating the
Okay,
children? But I will give.
can I say something that I think touches on what I think you're trying to get at, or what Kevin was trying to get at?
Yes.
An arrogance or a lack of awareness of our own ignorance.
I think that you have the answer because in your own words, okay? Because the imbalance is the fact that our society will feed a lot the by machine and will not feed a lot awareness in the education, okay? Our society is focused on training and not on the aristocratic education. Because let's not forget the fundamental distinction that I make at the beginning. The three first layers are the biomachines, and the biomachine grow by training. And the aristocratic education grow by awareness, by everything that would increase awareness. And in our society, there is a lot of training for the intellect, for the biomachine, but not a lot of stuff for increasing awareness. So the only thing to re-establish that balance is, I'm not saying to let the biomachine die. On the contrary, we have to keep on feeding the biomachine. But at 2 years old, we will need to offer music, dance, poetry, literature, philosophy, meditation at the same time that the biomachine start to be powerful, so that the time dimension, the biomachine will be well developed, and it needs to be well developed, and the aristocratic dimension will be developed at the same time. And there you will have a society made of aristocratic man and not of neurotic man, because of the imbalance.
You differentiated in regards to your response to Kevin, true innocence versus dumb innocence. Could you explain a little bit more your idea, the difference between the two?
What are the words that you use? I don't know why.
Dumb innocence.
A dumb
and
innocence, yes.
True
yes.
innocence.
Yes.
So
dumb,
how would you?
yeah, dumb innocence is that I said in the past that children, especially children who are very young, are naturally aristocratic man, meaning that they are more in their awareness than in the biomachine. Okay. Before the biomachine start to run seriously at 2 years old, between 0 and 2, most children are natural aristocratic persons, okay, because the biomachine did not run seriously yet, because the language did not start yet. I call that part of their life dumb innocence, okay, because it has been given to them by nature, and it would be destroyed completely from the moment the biomachine would start at 2 years old. And true innocence or true awareness is when you truly are given an aristocratic education in order to nurture that awareness at the same time that the biomachine. That is true innocence.
Would you say that that relates more to humility, like the cultivation of humility, or is that something different in your mind? And
it's much broader than humility. Okay, humility is the capacity not to be arrogant, not to know one's own place, but in a good manner, in the sense that I am what I am, and I contribute according to what I can, and I don't want to appear to be more than what I am. Okay, to be arrogant is to pretend to be more than what we are. Okay, which is the contrary of humility. Humility is a direct consequence of awareness. Awareness, or the aristocratic education, is much broader than humility. Humility is a result of the cultivation of awareness, because awareness will bring you to the discovery of the beauty, of the goodness, of the truth, of the capacity to have a meta representation of your animal mind. So the aristocratic education would certainly make you humble, but it's one amongst a lot of other good things.
Kevin, do you feel like that was that okay for you, or do you have a follow-up?
just to clarify, when you were speaking about the dumb innocence, do you confine that to strictly the age from 0 to 2, or do some people keep that dumb innocence throughout their life or at some moments in their life? I'm not clear on that.
Okay, I did not choose the word dumb by coincidence. Okay, I chose it purposefully. Dumb means stupid, but dumb also means that you cannot talk. Okay, so it's an innocent is related to the fact that you did not learn to talk. Okay, so if someone is dumb in the first sense that he cannot talk till 10 years old, well, he would have a dumb innocence since 10 to 10 years old. Okay, so because our ego, our personality is a lot related to our inner speech. Okay, when I said that talking or thinking is the same, because thinking is talking inside. And when you learn to talk from the outside, okay, learning to talk is a characteristic of our by machine, because in our brain we have the Wernicke area and the Broca area. So you put a human child with human communities speaking a certain language. By imitation, the child will simply talk that language. Okay, so there is nothing I'm sorry, difficult in that, because it's part of our human biomachine that will start for most of us around 24 months or 2 years old. So when you start to talk, you lose your dumb innocence, and maybe it will take let's say 6 months to a year that you will lose that dumb innocence, because you will start to have a crystallized ego. Before, between 0 and 2, you have a certain ego, a certain sense of I, of myself, and of me. But it's not as strong before the appearance of articulated language.
Okay, follow-up question. So, because we have two figures here, we have here, I mean, the goal of this talk today is to talk about the aristocratic education, which we don't have in Canada, for example. That we're far from there, right? But let's say we talk about what we have today in Canada, for instance. You have the child from 0 to 2 has the dumb innocence, and then, if I'm understanding correctly what you're saying, whereas we would want in an aristocratic education to input true innocence in the education, to develop awareness in parallel to the bodily development, something else in the present in Canada, for instance, something else gets in the way, or something else is used, and what you're saying is the ego is gets crystallized instead of the true awareness. Am I understanding correctly? Or
yes, you understand perfectly. Okay, because it's a part of nature to give an ego or a personality to each of us. Okay, the ego, the personality, is a mechanical part of the mind that is given by nature to you, so you can see yourself as Kevin, or me as Quan, or Matt as Matt. Okay, because at the center of that ego is your name, and it is perfectly okay to have an ego, because it is a gift of nature at a lower level, because you need to have a social identity, you need to function, to navigate within your society. But if you only have that mechanical part of yourself, if you have the black and the white horses, to use Plato's metaphor, it is beautiful. Okay, the horses would pull the chariot, but it's not as beautiful if as you also have a charioteer that will direct the two horses. So our society is feeding the two horses, but it's not feeding the charioteer. My suggestion is you have to feed the horses, And you also have to feed the charioteer. So there you will have a magnificent chariot with a charioteer.
Well said.
Yeah, thanks.
Jerry.
Yes, Quan, I wanted to continue with that thought of Kevin's and this idea of innocence, because when you were talking about the gardens, the fifth garden with Erato, and lyric poetry. And to me, I think of, poetry that talks about the beauty of nature, the beauty we see in the animals, the birds, the insects, or the flowers. And there's a certain innocence to that. I don't know if that's the right word to call it innocence, but in my mind, there's a certain innocence about Erato. I don't know if you could comment on that. It would help me.
I think that you're absolutely right, because lyric poetry is a poetry about enthusiasm, okay, about the divine within. And that enthusiasm can be kindled by anything, okay, by physical beauty, by a poem, by philosophy, by a good glass of wine. It doesn't matter, but it's something that is the flame of the divine within. So absolutely, when you are dancing with that enthusiasm, and notwithstanding the source of that enthusiasm, while you are driven back to that pure awareness, that true innocence, and not the dumb innocence that we all get between 0 and 2 years old. But if that dumb innocence is not maintained later in life, it's not interesting, because we want to keep that charioteer, that pure awareness, not as a dwarf or even non-existent, but as a full-grown adult driving the two horses.
Uwe, and then Sue.
Yeah. So I would like to share an observation. At the beginning, we spoke about the aristocracy as it is portrayed today, or how they see themselves, the oligarchs, the elite. And from the discussion, I have been made aware that so we know of the existence, for example, like the Rees committee discussions, where they deliberated in the beginning of the 20th century about how to control or how to shape a society, and they discussed it was war and education. And it was those aristocrats who consider themselves aristocrats by bloodlines or by other distinguishing features, such as money as a sign of prowess or whatever, or of noble descent. But they are not noble in the meaning as we've discussed here in the Platonic meaning, because they think that that their offspring will automatically be noble. Well, they control education for their kind in this way, without getting to the level of awareness, or to the level of humility of considering themselves truly human, and everyone endowed with the same qualities. So they control education in terms of training. So what they control is they make sure that society only gets a training for the biomachine and not get the properties to feed the chariot, to prevent from charioteers ever gaining the reins, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I would say that I wouldn't call the fake aristocrat by heredity the nobleman, okay, to distinguish from the true aristocrat in the Platonic meaning. Those noblemen always manage to prevent the normal people to get access to the classical education. And one of those noblemen, Bertrand Russell, precisely wrote in his books that the true education is the privilege of the nobleman, and for the ordinary people, just give them some training, okay, and so they learn some trade. But the tragedy is that those noblemen were not true aristocrats, okay? So their pretensions are just pretensions because they are not truly excellent, as the name pretend. So I make the distinction: nobleman or hereditary nobility versus aristocrats. And in my language, aristocrats is always in the meaning of Platonic aristocrat.
On that note, before we go to Sue, I just wanted to jump in quickly with a follow-up question on that. In your essay series, which I adored, and it's going to be, by the way, in the description box under these videos for anybody who's listening on YouTube and wants to read this amazing trilogy, or as you did it, I believe, in 13 parts, but we published it in 3. There was one little point that I just found I needed some clarification to, because I felt like in the language you were using, and maybe it's just the language, that you sense that there was in the true aristocratic education, there isn't it's very different from the trade, like, so, skill craft type education orientation, as if that's a totally separate other kind of education. Did you mean to have those as 2 different things, or do you find that there is a place also for learning a craft or a skill within the aristocratic education as well?
Oh, there is okay, that's very interesting. I go back to the image of Plato, okay? You have to feed the 2 horses and you have to feed the charioteer. The charioteer is the aristocratic education, and the 2 horses is the training, okay, or learning of a trade. So the whole man is the chariot, the 2 horses, and the charioteer, okay? So absolutely, it's not because you have an aristocratic education that you don't have to learn a trade, of course, okay? And I would say that it's part of a true aristocrat, in the sense that maybe you know that, Matt, but during the time of the Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman princes and the Ottoman emperor, the Padishah, they had to learn a trade, a manual skill. Okay, for example, making furniture or making shoes or making calligraphies, okay, binding books, because they truly understand that a true aristocrat, he is someone that is in beauty, goodness, and truth, in awareness, of course. But a true aristocrat, yes, Kevin wrote that Jesus was a carpenter, absolutely. But you also need to learn a trade, because a true aristocrat will not live on the back of someone else, okay? Will not exploit the other, okay? So he will know a trade, a skill, so when he can earn some money, that he will not exploit people, of course.
That's good. No, I appreciate that. That it didn't quite come out as explicit as you just made it there vocally, so I appreciate that.
Once again, think to the metaphor of the chariot or the charioteers, yeah. Okay? You need to feed the 2 horses, you need to take care of the chariot, you need to clean it, and you need to feed the charioteers.
That's good. Sue, go for
it. I just want to convey my deepest gratitude for this. It just brings so much clarity. I was a teacher, and about 10 years ago, I discovered Electric Universe, Dr. Michael Claridge, Halton Arp, and within the water domain, Gerald Pollack and Victor Schauberger. And so I started bringing this to the children, especially, 12-year-old, 13-year-old boys, and enriched math, Platonic solids. And we were exploring the universal patterns found within the cosmos and all of life. And for a time, they would run to the class. They were so inspired and lit up around the understanding that there were universal truths. One boy, when we were studying Platonic solids, said, "Is this just arbitrary, or is this? This is the underlying pattern that And then I was shut down by Harvard parents, and pretty heartbroken. But it just, I'm just so grateful to come back to this, because the oligarch has tried to clamp down on sharing with children that they're all of these universal patterns, and seeing in their hearts and minds just light up was one of the greatest times for me in my life. So I'd like to come back to teaching again because of Rising Tide Foundation and everything you're sharing. We are lit up.
That was super, super appreciated. Love that. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, and thank you, Matt, too, for your book, Science Unshackled. I didn't even teach it well in terms of having the broad understanding. I was just pulling pieces together of what these great scientists and poets and I think when these great artists and scientists, they point to the poetry of life, of all of life. They point to the music and that is imbued throughout the cosmos, and the dance of the water, the rivers and oceans. And so, but your book was just brought it all together. Thank you too.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Well, what say you, Quan?
About?
Well, shall we put in some closing remarks?
I would say that I would like to say about one last word about the aristocratic man. After all, we are speaking of the aristocratic education, and I think we cover it. But the aristocratic man, politically speaking, is the statesman. Okay, let's not forget that for Plato, the democratic man, which corresponds to the form of justice, is the warriors protecting the city. And the aristocratic man, which is the form of valor and moderation, is politically the statesman. Okay, the man, but the aristocratic man is necessarily at a statesman position. Okay, he is endowed with playful exploration, creativity, discovery, inventivity. The true statesman has, or at the very least, of a democratic man, but it would be less interesting because according to Plato understanding, the democratic man, he has justice, he would be trustworthy, but has and inventivity and playful exploration statement to be at the level of the aristocratic man. And maybe one last word about what I call the axio-epistemo-political triangle, which is precisely that correlation between the timeless form, the epistemological journey, and the political dimension. Okay, what I call BOB as an acronym. Okay, BOB, the first B is for being. That is the dimension of the timeless form of beauty, goodness, and truth. The O is for epistemological overture, which is the mind journey from 1 to 6, from the first layer to the 6 layers, meaning the ascension of awareness from 1 to 6. Okay, at 1, your awareness is focused on the sense perception. At 2, your awareness is focused on the intellect, wording, conceptualizing, organizing. At 3, your awareness is focused on social sophistication, on being streetwise, on making consensus, and it's not a problem. Okay, between 3 and 4, your awareness is focused on the 10 gardens of the muses. At 4, your awareness is focused on justice. At 5, your awareness is focused on valor and moderation. And at 6, your awareness is focused on wisdom. But what is the most important is that when you have the unity of the virtue, your awareness can move at any stages or any floor from 1 to 6 according to what is needed. Okay, And my last word is about freedom. What is freedom after all? Freedom is the full development of all your 6 layers of the mind and your capacity to move as you want between or at each of those layers depending of the circumstances. And freedom is also another word for personal sovereignty. And once again, the title of my article is of minds and man. So we have different kinds of minds defining different kinds of man. And those men will participate to the translation or to the journey from the plutocratic society, might is right, to the aristocratic society where might serve right. And that's why I said universal history and the creation of aristocratic man. So it has to begin by personal freedom and personal sovereignty, and it will expand progressively. And another concept that I would use, the open aristocratic oligarchy, okay? Meaning that in a society when you don't have an aristocracy in the sense of Plato, a government of the excellent, a government of people capable of creativity, inventivity, and playful exploration, well, you would have to start with the small numbers having a democratic and aristocratic quality, or at least having the intention to go on the epistemological journey to develop the democratic and aristocratic qualities. And obviously, by simple common sense, at the beginning, it would be a small number. Since the word oligarchy, oligos, the few, the small number, the power of the few, the power of the small number, of aristocratic quality. But the whole expression is open aristocratic oligarchy, meaning that the room of the few who are truly aristocratic, who are truly excellent, it is open, meaning that it's not a hereditary nobility. Everyone is invited to that epistemological journey in order to increase the number of true aristocrats. And I make the hypothesis that probably now I will limit myself to Canada, and even that it can be controversial. Maybe there's no more than 1% of true aristocrats in Canada now. Okay, I take the risk to say that. And maybe Matt, you have another number, but you can say your number after. But 1% is very few. Well, we will have to start from there, and maybe that 1% will become 5, will become 10, will become 20, will become 30. I guarantee you that from 5% of true aristocrats, the society will truly change. Even from 2-3% of true aristocrats, you will see improvement, okay? And I will finish, since we're in year 4722 of the Chinese calendar, I will finish my presentation with a small advertisement for China. The Chinese Civilization Party, that most people would call the Communist Party of China, but that I call the CCP, the Chinese Civilization Party, is about 100 million people. 100 million people on 1,400 million people, which is the population of China, is about 7%. So China managed to become, in 30 years, from a third world country to practically a first world country, in 30 years, in one generation, with 7% of her population, which is true aristocrats. And I make the hypothesis that maybe only half of them are truly good. So if I divide 7 by 2, it means 3.5. So China managed to become almost a first world country in one generation, starting from the state of a third world country with about 4% of true aristocrats. So I can say to you that if we have 10% of true aristocrats, people would think that we would be heaven on earth. I don't even talk of 30% or 40% or 50% of aristocrats. .
No, that's beautiful. I really appreciate that reframing. And yeah, I thought you were being a little bit generous on Canada by estimating that 1%. But that being said, we could see just how this type of closed, perverse oligarchy that's been holding on has really been working against the grain of history and against the grain of natural law and of human nature itself, which it requires an immense amount of energy expenditure, effort to keep humanity as far distantly removed from our true self, our true nature, that which would make us truly happy, and make us actually truly not only at peace but prosperous. So it does that reframing that you just did beautifully in a very truthful way. I really appreciate that because it does open up the door to reasonable hope. And it creates a space to operate within. A lot of people, just by looking at the stupidity around us in our immediate surroundings, we can get a little overwhelmed. And I know it happens to me. It happens to everybody that I know. You know, you get a little bit overwhelmed by just the intensity of the self-delusion and stupidity and mediocrity that is just in our immediate surroundings, that we lose sight of the broader process that we're a part of, and that certain other parts of the world, outside of our sphere of direct perception, have been doing a much better job at interfacing with, as far as acting upon natural law and moving with the currents of history, universal history. So what you did there in the course of the past 2 hours, very, very highly appreciated, Quan. And so thank you so much for doing that. And thank you for
Mats. I
this is
was
the
being polite. I was being polite when I say 1%, but you know I'm Chinese. I'm polite person.
yes, you're very diplomatic. Yes. Well, this is good. And again, this living this is the most appropriate form that you could have probably selected for this sort of topic, especially as far as a living organic dialectic process. Very good. Plato and Socrates would both be as happy as Confucius and Mencius would be as well, and are in some way. So thank you. And thank you, everybody. And we're going to join back again next week for a class by, I forget, but it's going to be good. So happy Chinese New Year. Happy Year of the Dragon. And see y'all next week.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Juan.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye now.
Very beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Goodbye.
谢谢。
Sure.